This is Sue Johanson. She's a sex education teacher who works with school kids and their parents. Today, she's going to help your own family feel more comfortable talking together about sex, love, and responsibility. And here is a group of parents and kids who will be helping Sue today. Now keep in mind, these parents and kids have been encouraged to ask and say whatever they want. As you can imagine, that will probably lead to some special moments, sometimes heated, sometimes fun. But that's how we're going to achieve our goals, to encourage parents to better understand and respect their children's feelings, and to help kids feel more comfortable when they come to their parents with questions about dating and sex. Here's Sue Johanson.
We're going to spend the next period of time talking about sex education. All parents want the best for their kids. No parents set out to be rotten parents. We want the best. But we have difficulty providing the best information, the facts, to our own kids. It's very difficult for us to talk to our own kids about something that is so personal and so private and so intimate as human sexuality. So today we're going to spend some time talking with parents and with kids, hoping to get some techniques, some clues, some hints that will make it easier for you to talk to your own kids about sex, and to also listen to your own kids and hear what they are really saying without us jumping in and lecturing and moralizing and preaching. We're terrified about AIDS.
Terrified.
And we don't know an awful lot about it. Not too many people know much about the HIV virus, and not too many people know about seroconversion and the window period. And so it's very difficult, but we're scared.
Yeah,
we don't want that.
There's no cure.
We do know there's no cure, and we do know that it is spread by sexual contact and by doing heavy-duty drugs, shooting up with needles.
Right.
So
we know it's final.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
It's final.
Can't turn back.
And that's a fear. I mean, you're going to lose your child. This is your kid. You don't want them to, it's so easy. It's not like when we were children, you know, we were kids. I'm sure, you know, there's always this and that, but, you know, we weren't going to die from it.
Yeah,
The worst thing that happened was
Mind you, of course, if you went out and drank and drove and smashed the car up, you could die.
Sure.
Now, what about...
yeah, but it wasn't something that, like, it's like a disease that you get, you know, and then you are gonna die. You can drink and then not drive. You can't get AIDS and then not die.
True.
So we removed choice there. What about unplanned pregnancy, too? I'm sure that's uppermost in...
I think AIDS is much... AIDS, we're more worried about that. Pregnancy, you know, it's not as high on the list as AIDS is. AIDS is way up there. I mean, pregnancy, I'm sure, is up there, too, but AIDS is something people should always think about when you're having sexual...
But pregnancy is important for girls to understand for one reason. It disrupts your life to a certain extent, especially if you're young, because you look at it and you might like that guy and you think, oh, I'm having this person's baby, but you've got to realize that you're taking on a responsibility until that child is 18 or older. Hopefully you'll be able to send him to college. If you have no money and you get pregnant, are you going to be able to send that child to college if you don't even have college tuition for yourself? When your other friends are going to a dance or something and you have no babysitter, are you going to just leave that baby at home? And maybe your mother isn't happy about it, so she may, just out of spite, say, well, I'm not going to keep it. You had the baby, you take care of it.
Right.
So it's a major responsibility. Even though AIDS is life-threatening and will kill you, pregnancy does have effect on you also, because it means that you have to be responsible for another human being. You have to provide Pampers, you have to provide food, the whole works, and it's like you're taking on the responsibility that your mother took on when she had you, and it's important for girls to know that.
I don't think it's only important for girls. I have a real concern that guys, but you see, that's because we have neglected giving guys the information, and society has the idea that when a teenage female gets pregnant, the guy is just gone. He's history. That's it. Bye-bye, over the hill. And that's wrong.
When girls get pregnant, they don't think, oh, there's a guy behind it. They think she's pregnant. That's it.
That's right.
Nobody else. It's like she's in a little circle, and everybody else is like out of the picture. You know, they never.
But he suffers. Because he's powerless. Totally powerless. He has no say in the final outcome, none whatsoever. She may deny him the right to be involved in parenting, and that is still his child, and he has no say in it.
So we're touching on a subject now where there are some people saying, well, I'll just get an abortion. I mean, and that's a whole other subject, I'm sure, what we're talking about. There's a lot of people decide to have their babies, and those are the ones that we're speaking of, that take them to high schools with them and things like that. And there is pro-choice, I'm sure.
Grammar schools too?
And grammar schools as well. But it's just kind of, a lot of people, you know, say, well, I can just have an abortion. What's the deal?
I don't know. This is how I feel. I don't think there is any woman that has ever had an abortion that just says, oh, I'll just have an abortion. That is something very psychological, and inside you're thinking, you know what you're terminating. It's not like you're just going, oh, well, I just don't want to have this baby. Okay, come on, just get in there, take it out. I'm going home. I'll have some pizza, go to the mall. It has to hurt you inside.
Each year, 1 in 5 sexually active teens gets pregnant by mistake. That's over 1 million unplanned teenage pregnancies each year. 50% of those pregnancies result in live births. 36% end in abortion, and 14% of those pregnancies end in miscarriage.
How about talking to our kids about really sensitive issues? Because we have the idea, if we tell our daughter about birth control, that I'm almost giving you permission to go out and do it. You've got a boyfriend, and I have this idea that you're going farther than I want you to go, but I'm scared, so I'm telling you about birth control. Are we comfortable as parents talking to our kids about birth control? About going on the pill?
I want to give my children all the information that I can possibly give them.
Okay.
I want them to know it all, as much as I can give them, because they're the ones that are going to have to take that information and go out and live their life.
And incorporate it into decisions.
That's right.
And behavior.
I'm not going to be there to stop them and say, no, you can't do this, or you shouldn't do this. But I sure want them to know what the consequences are. I want them to know what's going to happen.
And so, therefore, if you are going to do this, this is the next step.
It doesn't mean she's going to go out tomorrow and do it, or he's going to go out tomorrow and do it.
You're just giving
But I want them to know, and at an early age. I don't want to wait till they're 16.
Absolutely.
I want them to know when they're 9, 10, or 11, because I know what it felt like when I was 10.
Now, that's interesting. It's easier than to talk to your kids about birth control before they really need to know it. They haven't got a boyfriend or they haven't got a girlfriend. And so you're not sitting them down and plopping them down saying, now, we are going to talk about the birds and the bees, whether you are ready or like it or not. And we're also not waiting till they've got a partner and they're necking, and we start to panic and think, oh, does she know about birth control? Oh, how far are they going? Are they going all the way? Oh, man, I'm going to kill him if he, oh. And so therefore we tell them about it beforehand and give them the information about it first. But what if you have a daughter, a lovely, magnificent daughter, she's got a gorgeous boyfriend, he's a hunk, and you like him, and he's around the family a whole lot, and you think, now, I wonder if she needs protection. I wonder, that's my baby. Is there any way we can broach it with our kids? And I'd like to check this out with the kids. How could your mother bring it up without trampling all over your feelings, without putting you into instant denial, and without making you feel, this is okay?
Well, Mom and I are very open about basically every issue. So I think if she just told me, you know how much I love you, and I respect you and your life, but I'm kind of worried. What's going on?
That's a great way to say it. I'm worried. So she's using I language, she's using empathic listening, empathic communications.
And she's not accusing me, what are you doing? Are you with him? What have you been doing? It's like, no.
Are you doing it?
Yeah, it's just, I want to know. What's this
50% of all males will have had sexual intercourse by age 15 and a half. 50% of all females will have had sexual intercourse by age 16. Times have indeed changed. A large majority of today's kids will lose their virginity before they graduate from high school. When is the right time to start talking with your kids about sex, love, and responsibility? Sooner seems better than later. More than 20% of initial unplanned teen pregnancies are conceived within just 1 month after starting sexual intercourse. And 50% of all initial unplanned teen pregnancies are conceived within just 6 months after starting sexual intercourse.
And when we don't give our kids information about sex, then we are denying them the opportunity to make a conscious decision. Then, that's when they get involved in sex out of curiosity. Because they see it on television and they hear about it with their friends and they think everybody's doing it. Everybody's having sex. They walk down the hall of a high school and they see all the females and they're all gorgeous and glamorous and they think, I am the only virgin in the whole school. Everybody's doing it but me. I got a big V tattooed on my forehead. I am the only virgin. And that goes for guys too, because boy, is there ever a lot of pressure put on guys to have sex, isn't there? Yeah. Yes. He wants to be seen as cool, knowledgeable, experienced, sophisticated, and I know where it's at. And I've done it before. So that makes it very, very difficult, puts a lot of pressure on guys.
I just want to interject something. Let's get real. This is the 90s. This nice girl thing, right? That's nice and dandy for then. Who cares about nice girl thing? AIDS is out there. When you're going to have sex anyway, you're going to carry a condom. Women have condoms. They have them in their purses. A nice girl doesn't carry a condom is like saying, in some ways, you're dead. If I can play devil's advocate here, it's like saying you're dead if you're going to do something anyway.
Or you just don't do it. That's my belief.
Yeah.
For you, the bottom line would be,
Don't do it.
Don't do it at all, whether you've got a condom or not.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's kind of ignorant to say that it will not happen.
Right.
Because chances are that before you're married, you're going to be put in the position where sex is an option, and you have to be prepared if you choose to take that route.
Yeah.
Even if a girl were to carry a condom in her purse and she was in the position to have sex, she would not give the condoms to the guy. The guy wouldn't want to put this so-called condom on because he doesn't feel anything.
Oh, well.
Well,
No,
then you just say, if you
Then
want
walk
to feel
away.
something, go elsewhere.
Right, I know that.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
saying this is what...
Then the bottom line is, no condom, no sensations whatsoever.
Times have changed. We live in very, very dangerous times now. It's not a point where feeling anything is going to make a difference. You're not going to feel nothing when you're dead.
Well, and not only AIDS, but I'm very, very concerned about another sexually transmitted disease that we're not hearing a great deal about, and it's called chlamydia. And it is almost epidemic now. And it's really scary because there's no signs and symptoms. And it's sexually transmitted only. You do not get it from toilet seats. You do not get it from towels. You do not get it from drinking fountains. It's sexually transmitted only. And it can result in permanent sterility for the female. It can result in pelvic inflammatory disease for a female, which is very, very serious and must be treated very quickly. And the only protection we have against chlamydia is a condom. Because it's going to result in permanent sterility if it's not caught, diagnosed, and treated very quickly, then we, as parents, must be aware that if we have the idea that someday we want to be a grandparent, not right now, but sometime or other in our life we would like to be a grandma, then we have to give our kids the information that they need to protect their fertility, because otherwise it's not going to happen.
About 1 in 4 sexually active kids will become infected with a sexually transmitted disease before they graduate from high school. When you ask teens who catch sexually transmitted diseases how they feel, they often use words like dirty, ashamed, or embarrassed. Teenagers are frequently devastated by the prospect of, quote, having something for the rest of my life. Sexually transmitted viruses like herpes or genital warts sentence some to a lifetime of vigilance and doctor checkups because these infections can recur periodically. The only 100% effective way to avoid getting a sexually transmitted disease is to not have sex. However, if you do decide to take the risk, the next best thing to do is always use a condom every time. Make sure that the condom is made of latex and is lubricated with a spermicide. But remember, for typical new users, condoms have a high first-year pregnancy failure rate of 12%. So if you want to be safer, don't have sexual intercourse or use an additional method of birth control like the pill, spermicidal foam, or a contraceptive sponge. Condoms, spermicidal foam, and contraceptive sponges are available at drugstores. They are available to people of any age, and you do not need a doctor's prescription to get them.
The outside world is moving fast, and we can't keep up.
That's
and
right.
We're worried about them growing up too fast, getting away from us.
Oh, but we want to protect our kids too and wrap them up in a plastic bubble and protect them from the outside world. That makes it safe, much safer.
That's one of my biggest fears,
Doesn't make-
is that my child's going to hurt, whether it be a physical hurt or an emotional hurt or a mental hurt. And I seem to want to protect my child from being hurt.
But one thing parents have to realize is also, because they went through those hurts and those experiences, it made them what they are. So we have to go through those hurts and experiences, maybe even different ones, or worse, or maybe not as bad, to make ourselves too, so that we have our experiences.
We can't be the same as our mothers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We have to hurt sometimes.
there is a certain element of pain in everyday life. I mean, it doesn't, I'm not saying that everyone must have pain constantly, because that would be stupid. But, I mean, you are turned into the person that you are through joy and pain and life and all this stuff. And to take away all the hurt, you would not be a well-rounded person if you hadn't experienced some sort of pain, be it mental or physical or both.
The other thing is, there's an important statement that it's not what happens to us in life that really matters. It's how we react and respond to what happens to us in life. That's the important thing. So what we've got to do is give our kids the skills and the ability to react and respond in ways that are appropriate to the experiences that are going to happen to them in this world.
Yes, that's true. And also, I think that as parents, if we project so much of our own fears and things we've experienced were like awful on our children, they develop some of these fears.
You know, that's not always really good, because from a parent's standpoint, they look at it as protecting their child and doing what they feel. They don't want anything to happen. You know, I know parents don't want anything to happen to their kids, and all they can think of it as is, I don't want this to happen to my child. But you have to look at it from the child's standpoint. When you tell the child, your child, I don't want you doing this, or I would prefer this or that, you know your interpretation of it, but the way they think of it and the way they may interpret it may be something totally different from what you have. I mean, your mind are both, you have two diverse minds that are working, and they may interpret it and they may be rebellious because, oh, she said such and such. The parents have to understand it's the context in which they phrase their words that would really get through to us and might make them, you know.
Yeah, I find with my son, he'll tell me about something that occurred at school with a girl, discussion they had or whatever, and I would have thought it would have hurt him very much. And he would say, no, it didn't really bother me. You know, so
we're putting our feelings onto our kids, imposing our feelings.
I can talk with both of my parents about sex, like, well, if I have like any questions, and they'll answer them. But a lot of my friends, like, their parents are like, they're really strict and stuff. They'll just freak out if they ask them any kind of question. Like, they wouldn't even let them have a boyfriend and stuff. They wouldn't let them get phone calls or anything.
So they're really protecting their kids.
Like, yeah.
And my concern there is that the kids then will suddenly start to rebel and act out all over the place. And then you get totally inappropriate behavior. Because kids are...
Yeah, I mean, teenagers are going to rebel against basically anything. I don't know if I'm speaking for everyone, but I speak for myself. I would like, I mean, if my parents told me, you may not date, you may not do anything like that, first thing I would do. Absolutely.
Yes.
Is run out and get a date and just kind of like laugh in my parents' face about it. I mean, it's just a fact
It's
of
a
life.
form of rebellion. And, you know, we as parents have to realize we cannot control our kids' behavior. We cannot. We are not going to make decisions for them. Our kids are going to make decisions for themselves. And so, therefore, we have to give kids knowledge and information so they can make decisions. This is true. Now, the minute I deny my kid permission and I say, there is no way, I do not want you going out with him, you'll notice the pointed finger, too. That should be broken right away. But the minute you say, I do not want you going out with him, immediately that is the one thing they're going to do. And they may never bring him home, but they're going to meet him in a shopping center. They're going to meet him after school. They are going to meet him in the library, on the street corners, behind my back, and I'm out of control. I've lost it.
They still need a good guideline to go by.
Yeah.
They do need it. They need to respect the parents' ideas also.
Of course, and that's where we as parents have an opportunity to give our kids attitudes and values that are important to us, and to make our kids aware of how we feel and why we feel that way. But we don't have the right to expect that our kids are going to accept our attitudes and values carte blanche, because they're not. They're exposed to so much more in today's world, and there's so much more input that they are going to look at our attitudes and values, plus ones that come from other areas, from our schools, from our friends, from our peers, from our community, our society, our church, and we're going to look at all of that, and then they decide what's right for them. Now,
You guide them the right way.
Sure.
but we've got, at least they've got our bottom line and our guidelines.
Right.
We do lecture and preach about morality, attitudes, and values. I'm always concerned that we don't give our kids an opportunity to talk about their attitudes and values. And this ties back in with your statements about just listening to your kids. When you say, how do you feel about that? And then bite your lower lip and shut up. And just listen to your kid. Not jump in, not intervene, but just listen. And let your kids sound out attitudes and values. What I'd love it if parents could listen and then reinforce afterwards. So when your child has stated an attitude or a value and talked about and articulated, then if we could say, I never thought of it that way. You have really thought about this. I am so impressed. I am absolutely delighted. You have really given this a great deal of thought, and I am really proud of you. Wow. Okay, now, there's something else that I think I need to say here, because I am really scared. And then that's our opportunity to talk about some of our fears, some of our anxieties, some of our worries about sex and sexuality.
And you plan it in early with them, and then they'll go to a point they'll rebel, and everything you said, you'll throw it out the door. Then later on in life, all those things you put there will start coming back. I'm an optimist on that sense.
Oh yes, absolutely
I really
they
think
will.
that if you put it in there, it will come.
Now, it won't come back exactly as you planted it.
Okay.
It will come back pretty well what you want. And you will hear yourself and you'll think, oh, did I say that? Oh, wasn't I brilliant? But then you'll hear something else and you'll see how that there's a little change there, and you have to stop and think, well, okay, they thought about it, and my attitudes and values didn't really fit into the way they were feeling and the way they saw things, and they've made a decision for themselves that's slightly different from what I would have liked, but nonetheless, it's a good decision. It's okay.
The basis is still the same.
Absolutely.
But it's like new and improved.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's the same thing,
Modified.
but it's more attuned to
Our time.
their times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everything gets just a little bit better with each generation.
And the thing is that we grow from having children. That's the one thing that forces us, children force us as adults and parents to grow and look at our attitudes and values and say, hey, wait a minute, you know, is it really important in the whole scheme of things?
I think that adults have pretty good idea of what's going on in the world and everything because they've had friends and their friends have had experiences and they've had experiences, so they have a lot of wisdom in a very big area. And when they pass it on to us, you know, it's very important. But then we have our own experiences and our friends have their experiences. So we take their information and our information and we change it a little bit to fit how our life is now because we don't have the same thing that happened to our parents.
Masturbation. Kids call it playing with themselves. As parents, what are our fears about masturbation? Why do we put these blocks up for our kids?
They're opening themselves up too soon for sexual activity. What comes right after masturbation is, let's do it for real.
Okay, so we have the idea that the minute they start masturbating, they're going to get hooked on it.
It's one of the fears.
They're going to be out of control. They're going to get addicted to it.
More what it may lead to, not so much as masturbation, being addicted to.
Is that for females or for males?
For both.
Okay. Any other parental concerns about masturbation? Why do we choke over the word even?
Shame.
Oh, shame. And, you know, there are still some religious connotations that are back in the back of your mind or foremost in your mind because some religions and some cultures, some families really emphasize that masturbation is morally wrong. And so although we know that most kids will try it, we have given them the message that it's not right.
But what's the purpose of it for a kid? Are you saying that it's unhealthy for them to do it, or is it healthy for them to do it? What are you saying?
It's normal. I'm saying it's normal. It's part of a process of learning about your body. But we are very uncomfortable with it as parents and as adults.
Is it a subject that we bring up to our children, or how do we handle that?
Very, very delicately. We lecture a whole lot at our sons. And we say to our sons, don't do that. You'll hurt yourself. Don't do that. You'll pull it off. Don't do that. You'll wear it out.
You'll go crazy. You'll go blind.
You'll go crazy.
You'll go blind.
You'll go blind.
Oh, yeah.
Your acne will get worse.
That's right.
Your brain will turn to jello. So, you see, the blocks that we set up. Now, females, we don't even talk to females about masturbation. We simply give the message, nice girls, don't do that.
So with me, it's like being honest. I have 2 little girls, and to see that beginning to happen, it's like they're not my little girls anymore. I'm losing. They're growing up. You know, it's
but
like
little girls masturbate very, very young. Little girls will straddle the arm of a sofa and rock back and forth, and we look at this and we know what they're doing, but we deny it.
Good point. As a dad, there's kids that have jumped on my leg and they'd be playing, little girls, and I would take them off and play in another position.
And you're playing horsey with
them. Because then it's your fault.
Exactly. Yes, it made me feel, I felt like I had to take them and move them at that point because they were playing along.
And it felt good.
And it's not that I'm the dirty old man and I'm thinking sexually. The reality is here, you know, the physical aspect of what's
happening.
And
the world is going to look at you as the dirty old man.
Yes.
And little girls in the bathtub will look at their genitals, touch their genitals, and explore their genitals until they get caught. And then once they get caught, that's it. They start feeling very, very guilty about it.
It's normal for little girls, too.
Absolutely normal.
I'm thinking, okay, for boys, but not for girls. So I'm a little jaded on this.
Well, you know, as a sex therapist, what we have to do for some female who has never yet reached orgasm is really take her back and give her permission to learn about her own body first, so that she's comfortable with her own body beforehand. Okay, the next thing that I was really wanting to get into was the whole topic of fantasies. Because fantasies are very, very normal. Everybody fantasizes. We all spend hours fantasizing. We fantasize very differently, and I'm not sure that we really recognize the difference in the fantasies.
a lot of guys talk about fantasies, like at school, like by my friends and stuff, they talk about it and stuff. But I don't know if they find anything wrong with it.
So it's normal, it's okay for guys to have fantasies about sex. Okay, how about girls? Can we check it out with the females?
I fantasize about being in Paris on the Eiffel Tower on like a really foggy day, like with a guy and he's hugging me. But that's about it. I never really thought about fantasies, I guess.
Yeah, like mostly when like my peers like have any type of fantasy, it's mostly like romance and you're on the beach and you're walking and he's running his fingers through your hair, and if any girl even says something about, oh, we were in the back seat of a trunk, everybody was like, oh, you perverted little freak, it's just
Exactly. So you see, we have somehow, and I don't know how we did it, but we set up this block that we don't encourage females to fantasize. Females do not think about intercourse. Females do not fantasize what is it going to be like. What position do you get into? Females don't even think about getting there. Females do not stop and think, who undoes my bra? Him or me? Guys do. Guys plan it all out. I've had guys tell me they go into their mother's lingerie drawer, take out a brassiere, wrap it around a chair, and practice unhooking it. So that when the time comes, they'll know exactly how to do it. Oh, boy.
If this is the case, then we've got this huge gap going on.
Of course.
I mean, there really is a gap here.
Yes.
And you're right, absolutely. What you're saying is that I never think about going to Paris or anything else like that. I think about, just boom.
Getting there.
Maybe not Paris, but
I never,
But it's what you do in Paris. Exactly.
I think there's more romance in the girl's version of a fantasy than there. A guy, everything else is just incidental.
That's right.
It's a way to get the girl.
That's right. And I really understand that, guys do plan ahead and they think ahead and they use lines. Guys know the lines. All right. Give me the lines that guys use. You know them, obviously. What are the lines?
Hey, baby, can I have those 7 digits?
Okay.
Your body.
That's a good one.
Your body's like silk.
Your body is like silk. Oh, I want to hug you all. I want to kiss. Yeah, I want to kiss you all over.
Or what about the one that's like, your legs must be really tired, and you're like, why? Because you've been running through my mind all day.
Yeah. Oh.
I've heard that one. I've heard that one.
That one.
I'm going to use that.
Now, basically, if you look at those lines, then the bottom line, the bottom message is, and there are 5 bottom messages. I love you. I need you. And that usually has connotations that we don't talk about. I want you, which has many of the same connotations. Baby, you're the greatest, and I will never leave you. Those are lines. Females do not fantasize intercourse. They fantasize romance, moonlight over the water, romantic dinners, candlelight and wine. Those are things that females fantasize. I'm sorry?
Aren't females taught, though, from the time they're real little, to be very feeling people? Women are feelers. We feel a lot. And men are taught to be more analytical, more, you think it out. Excuse me, these are the steps, this is what you do. So men are more analytical, more thinking, where we are just really feeling human beings.
Is that biology or?
No, I think this is something that we are taught from the time that we are real little. And I think the only way around it is to start teaching our young men that we have from the time that they're very little, that they need to be feeling, caring people also, that they need to be able to feel.
But we've also then got a role to play in teaching our females to plan ahead and to think ahead and to know, okay, I'm going out on this heavy date tonight. Am I going to wear a blouse that has easy access? And am I going to wear a turtleneck t-shirt? And think ahead, plan ahead. And also carry that one step further so that our children do not feel like sleazebags, our daughters do not feel like sleazebags if they just happen to have a condom in their purse or in their pocket. Because most females have been taught that nice girls do not carry condoms in their purse or their pocket.
For a girl, if you hear something about her, you know she's called a slut. But with a guy, it's great for a guy. It's something to brag about. Yeah, he's a player. He's so cool. I want to go out with him. But then if you do, then you'll get a reputation as a slut.
It's like you hear all these stories, you're like, oh my God, did you hear about this guy, this and this with this girl? Oh my gosh, I'd love to go out with him. Oh, he sounds so great. Then you go out with him and they're like, oh man, did you hear about so-and-so? She's going out with him. She's such a slut. And he's a player. You know, it's like double standard.
Yeah. And so the message that, I'm sorry, Ginger?
It's like it's only okay for the guys to do stuff like that.
The guys are considered really cool, and the girls are considered like, oh, she's such a slut. I can't believe she did that.
Sleaze bag.
Yeah. You have to remember though that if the guy gets,
she's doing it just to be cool, just to come.
Yeah.
It's like both ways. Well,
that's not always true though, because like a lot. I know like 2 guys in my school that they do that a lot, but then like the girls are like, no, they're not attracted to him anymore because they think he's a.
So they won't go near him.
Right, because they think he's like a sleaze bucket.
Yeah. Okay. So he does. Guys can get a reputation.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then he still gets, out of school still.
And most of the but he's probably a minor hero to the other boys.
No.
Sometimes.
Or many of the other boys. That's why I said a minor hero.
Okay.
What do we as parents do then? As parents, it's a little confusing because we're telling them, we don't want you to get this reputation, but then maybe the reputation is kind of okay in segments and groups.
Okay.
I don't condone it, but I'm saying.
Yeah, and I would really like us then to be able to talk about relationship, because there's much more to being involved in sex, and sex is part of a relationship. It's best in a loving, caring, committed relationship. And when you're 11, 12, 13, 15 years of age, having a long-term, stable, committed relationship is just not possible. You haven't had time. One of the most common questions I get is, how do I know when I'm in love? And for many kids, that is an ongoing concern. They want to be in love. It is mandatory now that teenagers should be in love. And they're looking for love. They want the signs and symptoms of love. And we can't give them, if you've got this, and this, you're in love. So it's very hard to identify love. You're teaching him to be aware of the feelings of intimacy and connection and bonding and closeness and communication, plus that feeling of being turned on, the chemistry is there, that kind of a wonderful feeling about being in love. As parents, we're scared of that most of the time, because there's always that connotation that if you're in love, then you're going to go out and have sex to prove your love. So we've got to help our kids understand that being in love is wonderful and it's marvelous, but having sex is another aspect altogether. And our kids need to understand that the two do not necessarily go together. You can be in love, but you don't have to have sex to prove your love. Sometimes we avoid the whole issue by putting our kids down, and that's so unfortunate. When our kids say, I think I'm in love, and we say, oh, don't be silly. That's puppy love. It's just infatuation. Don't be silly. You'll get over it. It only lasts 6 months. And that's a real put down to our kids. And I really believe that if our teenagers think they are in love, they're in love. For them, right now, this is love. It may not last forever. They may not walk hand in hand into the sunset and live happily ever after. But this is love. And so we need to accept it and celebrate it and enjoy it. But also give our kids the information that just because you're in love, you do not have to have sex.
I'm speaking for myself. I don't know about the others, but I find it kind of hard to talk to my parents about it. I mean, it's kind of a personal thing, and you don't really want to go, oh, hey, Ma, guess what I did today? I mean, it doesn't seem like, I mean, if you're talking about younger kids, then that's great, but I mean, I don't think that would work at all times with a teenager.
I think though, if the parent does it right, he will let his children know that if you want to talk about it, fine. If not, fine too. There'll be another time when you might.
No, but parents, it's like, sometimes parents just, they get too curious, and inside, I mean, they're just like, God, I want to know what is going on. And the kids are like, oh my God, I hope my mom doesn't ask. And the parents are thinking, I want to ask, and I don't want her to ask. That can be very uncomfortable too.
So you're just skirting around and avoiding the whole issue.
Yeah, everybody's just like dancing around it.
Sometimes when parents are trying to help their kids and they're trying to find information about them, it's just kind of like you're nitpicking at them and what is this and what is that?
You're pulling.
Yeah, like you're trying, and you're like, that's why some kids, you know, they just, maybe they want to tell their parents, but just trying to convey like your thoughts to your parents is just sometimes kind of
Very, especially about sex.
Yeah.
It's like, get away, Mom.
Yeah. Not now.
Yeah, not now, not now.
Tired.
Now, how do you know when you've gone too far? Like, how do you know when your kids have lost interest? You've answered their question.
If they don't ask another question, that's
Okay.
one way. I mean, if the question stops, you've satisfied their curiosity.
But you know when they're bored, when they're spaced out, they're just looking at you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's the truth. And you can tell, as a parent, you learn those signals, those clues, and they get a blank stare to them, like there's nobody home, they're vacant, and they've clicked off.
But that's not always because they don't want to know, because I know like when sometimes when I was asking my mother and she was just like coming at me, she never really talked about it with me, and so then she started just telling me these things and I was like, oh my gosh. So I was kind of staring off into space and I was like, I didn't ask any questions. And like when she would say stuff and she'd say, do you have anything else to ask? And in my mind I was thinking, I want to know this, and that. I'm not going to say that to my mother, you know, what is she going to think? So sometimes it's not always that they're just bored or whatever. They may just be like, you know, how am I going to...
You feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, parents tend to say, well, I know exactly what you're going through. And you don't know exactly what we're going through because you may have grown up in the 50s or the 60s or the 70s, and it's totally different. This is the 90s. You have no idea what kind of problem. I mean, you have the basic same problems. Everybody has the basic problems, but there's whole different
people.
Yeah, like
environment.
Yeah, you had problems with sex and stuff like that in the 60s and 70s, but you didn't have AIDS, and that makes a big impact. And so I think it's unfair for parents to say, well, I understand totally what you're talking about, and you're overreacting. You can't possibly, you know, I know exactly what you're.
The other thing that parents tend to do is imply that I, parent, know what's best for you. You know, I am the expert and I know what's best for you.
What's wrong with that? You're not with us in our environment. You're not with us in our everyday life going from class to class. You don't see what's going on around us all the time on our way home from school, on the bus, at the bus stop, in classes. You know, it's like we can tell you what happens. We tell you general. But you're not there and you don't see everything that we see all the time.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
And then when you say something like that, like I know exactly what you're going through and you're overreacting, then I know I wouldn't want to go to the parent then and tell them things just to be criticized and blown off like that.
I think part of the problem too, as parents, we have no track record to go back to when we were children because we had no conversations of this sort. And now we stumble around a little bit and try to figure out the right way to approach the subject.
But there's no right way.
Pioneers, well, we're pioneers of a sort also.
The unfortunate thing is while we don't have the track record, we always tell them that we do by saying,
give the idea.
when I was your age.
Oh, that's the worst thing. I remember when
You're
I
right. It is the absolute worst.
No, you know, parents always want the best for their kids. And so sometimes when they tell you something or they think this is best for you, it's mainly for your own benefit. And even though sometimes what they tell you, you're an individual and you're going to do exactly what you want to do, but sometimes when a parent tells you something, it's either because they've experienced it before and they're trying to eliminate you going through the same thing, or either it's just that they care so much for you and they're so protective that they don't want you to get hurt. So, but your parents are looking out for you, you know?
Yeah, I agree. It happens a lot.
Yeah.
Another example where your parents don't know exactly what's best for you, and I mean, they do know some things. You know, you shouldn't say, well, parents don't know anything. They have absolutely no idea what's going on. They do have some idea, but they can't feel exactly what you're feeling.
I think it's important that while we talk to our daughters, we've also got to talk to our sons, because sometimes guys don't get a great deal of information about sex and sexuality. We kind of have the idea that guys are born knowing everything there is to know about sex. It's intuitive, and they just know exactly what it's all about. Of course, they don't, and that really makes it very, very rough for our sons. Now, we've talked about everything else, but the most embarrassing question that we are going to get from our kids. What is the most embarrassing question that you can think of that your kids are going to ask you about sex?
It depends on age of the kid. If it's a young kid, very young, it's where do babies come from?
Okay, absolutely. That's it. Where do babies come from? And so, as parents, as adults, we tend to opt into the medical language. Daddy has a seed and Mommy has an egg, and the seed joins the egg. And that satisfies them for a very short period of time. Very short. Thank you. It really does, because then the gears are going, and you can see the gears going, and then the next question is going to be there. All right, I got the seed, she's got the egg. Mommy, I need to know, how does the seed get there? And all of a sudden, we are into sex more than 101. And we've got to really talk about love and being turned on. We've got to talk about love and cuddling and hugging and kissing. And now we talk about intimacy and communications and sharing. And now we talk about when a man is sexually aroused, when daddy is sexually aroused, he has an erection and his penis gets firm and rigid and erect, or you can use the term, it sits up, it stands up, and that's okay. Most females understand that. All males understand that. And then we say that Mommy and Daddy make love. And Mommy gets all turned on, and Mommy wants to have sex too. And Daddy places his penis in Mommy's vagina. And you know what the vagina is by now. Hopefully we've taught our kids what a vagina is, and not down there. And then sperm travel from the testicles and around through a little tube, and they spurt out the end of the penis, and they're deposited in the vagina. And you know what sperm are like. And they have a head and a little tail, and they can swim. And they swim up the vagina and through the cervix and into the uterus and into the fallopian tubes. And you know what? If there's an egg there, one sperm will penetrate that egg. And she's pregnant right away. And then that fertilized egg with the sperm inside are going to roll down the fallopian tube and literally drop into the uterus and implant in the lining of the uterus, and that will become a baby. Now, if we can anticipate that question and then roll out our answer so that we're more or less prepared. We don't want to make it sound rehearsed and artificial, but we are more or less prepared for it. Then it's much, much easier for us.
When do I begin the process?
Mm-hmm.
How old should he be? Should I wait for him to approach me with certain things?
Mm-hmm.
Should I start him off with something, I don't know.
Okay. And that's really tough because you always feel like you're jumping in and you're imposing something on your child and that your child may not be ready for it at this stage of your life. So you're trying to anticipate what they need and when they need it. And if we could start really, really early, when our kids are very, very little, and answer questions or just talk about it as we're going along. If you're walking down the street and you see a lady who is very pregnant, then that's your opportunity to say, look, she's going to have a baby. That lady is lucky. She has a baby growing in a special organ in her abdomen. Isn't that wonderful? Now, in the beginning, that's probably all that child really wants to know. But gradually, you have established yourself as approachable. It's okay to talk to you, and you're safe, and you're not going to jump down on them, and you're not going to say, oh, don't even look. You don't talk about it. We'll talk about it later. You are saying, yeah, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked it, and here's an answer.
So there is no set schedule. It's just take it as it comes.
Just absolutely, just literally wing it, so that when they bring it up. Now, I also hope that parents will use every opportunity to talk about it. So we're talking about it while we're watching TV. We are talking about it around the dining room table when there are issues that come up. And you're sharing and debating and arguing amongst yourself or just discussing how you feel about it, then use that opportunity to explain what's happening and talk about it to your kids. And that's usually when we cover the controversial issues and the ones that are pretty close to home and the ones that we're a little tense about. The other thing that we can do is do it in language that's age appropriate. So we're not using medical terminology and great long words that they will never understand. They're safer for us and much easier for us to use them, but we've lost our kids in a maze of words, so that we use age-appropriate language, which is difficult.
If you stay close and have a good relationship with your kids, you can keep up with the language.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if you know the language that the kids are using, you're going to be able to understand what it is they're saying. On the other hand, and that has to do with your kids too, because different kids fooling around, like you said, fooling around is different to possibly you than it is to you or you.
Mm-hmm.
Parents and kids have a very, very different meaning about what fooling around is. You know, some parents are like fooling around. They can just picture you in a bed, like 2 steps away from a condom, and kids, to us, sometimes it's just, you know, maybe kissing or something, and it's 2 different mentalities.
So that is marvelous, because that means then that we have to check it out all the time with our kids. So if our kids are talking about fooling around, we check back with them and say, okay, you know, I know what fooling around meant for me when I was a kid, but I'm not sure what fooling around means for you. So do you want to tell me what are we talking about here?
So maybe also, this is one of the reasons why as parents we have to keep up on what the current situation is, so we don't overreact immediately. You know, that's my fear, is feeling like I would overreact if I think that one thing leads to another. I know it does. I know one thing leads to the other. Not to overreact is the hardest thing I would think personally for me to do.
What are we worried about? Why are we so scared for our kids?
They're not aware of their sexuality, and sometimes, like we were talking about French kissing and whatever, and they aren't aware of those feelings so much in the beginning, and they get involved in something, and sometimes as an adult, and we know for ourselves that the emotions can carry you to a point where you don't want to stop. Even though you've said in the beginning, I'm only going to do so much, but they have to be aware that once you get started, sometimes you really don't want to stop. Even in the back of your head, you're saying, I said I wasn't going to do it, or maybe the guy may become so much more aggressive, and then that's when date rape comes in, because you've taken him so far, and then all of a sudden you want to stop, and he doesn't want to stop. So you have to be aware of those feelings, that once you start to go a little bit further in your sexuality, then things can happen that you may lose control of. And I want my daughter to know this can happen before you start it.
And also that we get carried away. Not only guys, but we get carried away. It feels real good. Oh, we'll just go one step further. Oh, that feels so good. All right, I can always stop this anytime. And of course, then it comes to a point where you can't stop it. You can't stop yourself. What else are we scared of for our kids?
Well, my major concern is how much of this education will actually be believable to a 13 or 14-year-old.
Absolutely true. Because, of course, if it comes from parents, oh, what do parents know? Like, from nothing. My parents are so old, they haven't done it in 30 years. What do they know about sex? And they have a great deal of trouble. They also are firmly convinced that it won't happen to me.
Exactly.
You know, it happens to other people, but I'm not going to get AIDS. I can drink and drive. I'm not going to get pregnant. Don't worry about it. It's not going to happen to me. I don't even ovulate.
One of my great fears is that all that we're talking about here right now will not sink in and be believed. How do we know?
Funding for this program was provided by the National Family Health Center.